Nintendo Switch 2 has been out for almost 2 months now. While many people have been focused on learning the ins and outs of Mario Kart World to pull off the most insane shortcuts imaginable, I've been focused on something else. Something that's already rewriting what we thought we knew about Hyrule. That's right, I'm talking about Zelda Notes. 2 months after everyone else. In case you've been living under a rock, the launch of the Switch 2 was accompanied by an update to the Nintendo Switch Online app, which brought with it a companion for both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It serves as a GPS of sorts, guiding you to shrines, towers, quests, and a new addition, voice memories. These are new bits of lore that are scattered throughout Hyrule that are fully voiced by various characters, mostly Zelda though. Naturally, I've been diving back into both games to hunt these down, and let me tell you, some of these are really damn interesting. New revelations about various locales, events, and even the characters. But if you know me, you already know exactly who I was looking for. Yep. The first thing I did was check for any new lore about Hyrule's most arrogant avian, Revali. Now, going in, I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a passing comment from Zelda like, "Ugh, Revali's being such a pompous cuckoo again." And that's about it. But what I found genuinely shocked me. Not only do these new memories reveal a whole new side of Revali, they can be used to support my initial analysis of Revali from 3 years ago. So for this video, we're going to dive into every Revali-related voice memory from both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, discussing what each one reveals about Revali as a character. And as a disclaimer, I only just started diving into Tears of the Kingdom voice memories at the time of the script being written, so there is a non-zero chance that I missed something. I wanted to replay through both games since the Nintendo Switch 2 editions have a second save file, so that definitely contributed as to why this video took so long to get out. And any Revali voice memories I missed will more than likely get their own dedicated short sometime in the future. Hell, I think every voice memory in this video will get their own dedicated short. With that out of the way, let's dive into the truth about Revali that Zelda Notes just confirmed. In total, I found about 9 voice memories related to Revali. In Breath of the Wild, we have Divine Beast of Wind, Secret Rito Spring, Iron-Clad Force, and Bedraggled Wings. Oh hey, that rhymes. Neat. In Tears of the Kingdom, we have Wing Soaring the Skies, Honoring Revali, His Name, Revali's Landing, and A Warrior to Aspire to. First, let's start with Divine Beast of Wind. This one's pretty simple to find, being located just before the first bridge to Rito Village. In it, Zelda says the following.
Divine Beast Var Meadow seems to be soaring easily through the air. Training must be going well. Among all the divine beasts, I am told that Meadow, controlled by air currents, is the most challenging to maneuver. Yet Revali continues to impress. I imagine he, with his strong sense of duty and work ethic, has trained more than anyone else.
While the revelation that Va Meadow is the most difficult to maneuver is interesting, it's not what I want to focus on. Instead, I want to focus on that last line. I imagine he, with his strong sense of duty and work ethic, has trained more than anyone else. While this isn't an explicit confirmation and more of a suggestion, it does confirm my theory that Revali was the champion who trained the hardest. This was awesome to hear when I first discovered it, as it helps to further the narrative that Revali was just a normal member of the Rito who worked his ass off to earn both the recognition from his people and his title of champion. This isn't to say that Daruk, Mipha, and Urbosa didn't work to earn their champion status. They most certainly did. I feel like that was something that I could have made a bit clearer in my original Revali video, as I've received a few comments arguing that I was ignoring the work of the other champions put in. Yes, they all had to train to strengthen and improve their abilities, but evidence points towards Daruk, Mipha, and Urbosa all being born with their abilities, while Revali had to develop his entirely from scratch. Next up, Iron-Clad Force. This memory is also pretty simple to find, being located in Elder Kennelly's room at the top of Rito Village. It goes as follows.
I've heard that the Rito use refined group tactics in combat. Their elder has incredible intellect, the sharpest among the Rito in fact, and Revali is said to be the strongest Rito in history. It is said that they're an Iron-Clad Force, unlike any ever witnessed. I even sensed remarkable composure from the elder, as he told us not to worry about them. It was reassuring.
Now, this statement should be taken with a grain of salt. For one, it's worth noting that these memories specifically are from 100 years ago, if that wasn't already obvious, so the Rito Elder that Zelda spoke to is not Elder Kennelly. That means the claim that Revali is the strongest Rito in history could very well have some form of current bias. This also means that other Rito, such as Teba, Tulin, and possibly the Ancient Sage, aren't being accounted for here. However, there are two reasons that this claim could also be true. First, there's the Great Eagle Bow. The Great Eagle Bow is different from the Swallow and Falcon bows that are primarily utilized by the Rito. Teba states that the bow is far heavier than others, and that he would be sacrificing all of his speed to fire a single shot. He then follows this up by saying that if he had the strength and speed of Revali, then it would be a different story. Other than Tulin, Revali is the only Rito who has effectively wielded the Great Eagle Bow in combat, and even then, Revali is the only one who can fire 3 arrows at once. It's possible, however, that Tulin could one day reach the same potential as Revali, but until then, Revali remains on top. Secondly, it should be worth noting that these voice memories take a lot of lore from Tears of the Kingdom into account. There's the memory Rauru Settlement, found at the location of the same name, which mentions how the settlement was named after the first king of Hyrule. There are also numerous memories in which Zelda references a demon king from an ancient past, such as the memory Den of Madness found near the Bottomless Swamp. As a quick side note though, Den of Madness mentions that the rock shaped like a dragon's head was once worshipped by, quote, cultists who considered it the demon king from ancient times, which could very well be a slight nod to Age of Calamity, as we know that there are some cultists who worship the Calamity. This could just be a stretch, but I figured I'd mention it regardless. Anyway, back on topic. I brought these memories up to showcase how new lore has been added to better tie Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, which is honestly a pretty nice touch. The voice memories as a whole seem to have been written to account for the lore that was introduced in Tears of the Kingdom. With this in mind, there is a possibility that this voice memory does take the Ancient Sage, Teba, and Tulin into account, and outright confirms that Revali is the strongest Rito. We start to get into some juicy lore and theorizing with our next memory, Bedraggled Wings. You can find this memory right around the entrance to the flight range. I'll go ahead and play it for you guys now.
Watching him practice here at the flight range, it is clear to me that he is a truly unique champion. He creates an updraft and then catches it, soaring upward rapidly. He is the only one capable of such a feat, and yet it isn't even what makes him so remarkable.
This memory is short and concise, not really revealing anything that we didn't already know. We know that Zelda has seen Revali train before, as evidenced by the cutscene from the Champion's Ballad, but it does reveal a bit about how she views him. She refers to Revali as unique, which can carry both a positive and negative connotation. When describing an individual, unique is most often used to describe something about them that makes them stand out from the crowd. When Zelda uses unique, she's most likely referring to Revali's determination and dedication to improving his technique, as she describes how Revali's Gale works in the next sentence. However, I would argue that unique is also being used to describe Revali's personality. From what we were shown in Breath of the Wild, Revali was depicted as this pompous, arrogant figure who believed that his skills were truly better than everyone else's. The Champion's Ballad then challenged this notion, showing us that Revali isn't someone who was naturally gifted like the other champions, but rather someone who had to develop and master his technique from scratch. In the first Revali video I made, I suggested that this was one of the things that might have made Revali feel insecure, and I think we can expand upon that a bit. While Revali is repeatedly stated to be the Rito's pride and joy, I don't think I've ever seen anyone suggest what this could be doing to him. As a relatively young Rito who routinely surpassed every single archery record in Rito history, more and more people were beginning to take notice of him. Word of his feats likely spread around Hyrule, quite possibly through the various trading hubs like the Merita Exchange, not far from Rito Village. At first, that kind of fame might have felt validating, proof that all of his hard work was paying off. But constant praise can turn into pressure, especially when it feels like everyone expects you to keep outdoing yourself. And when that spotlight lingers for too long, it starts to burn. That's where I think the cracks begin to form. As Revali climbed higher and higher in skill and status, so too did the expectations placed upon him. Every arrow he loosed, every gust of wind he summoned, it all had to be perfect. And when you know the world is watching, even a small misstep can feel like failure. So what do you do when your accomplishments no longer feel like they're enough? When being the best doesn't make you feel secure, but exposed? You build a wall. You craft a persona, arrogant, cocky, untouchable, not just to impress others, but to protect yourself. Revali's arrogance may not have been a natural trait, but a defense mechanism. A way to convince both himself and everyone else that he wasn't just the best, he was unshakably confident in it. In that sense, Zelda calling him unique is more than a vague compliment. It's a subtle recognition of that contradiction. She sees the way he pushes himself harder than anyone else, maybe even senses the insecurity buried beneath the bravado. Oh god, the brain rot is worse than I thought it was. Our final memory in Breath of the Wild is Secret Rito Spring. This one requires a bit of a hike to find, being located at Goflam's secret hot spring in the Hebra Mountains. Take a listen.
Revali brought me to Goflam's secret hot spring, telling me I was overworking myself. Since he can only carry one person, he said he would act as my guard, so Link is waiting at the village. I cannot remember the last time I relaxed on my own like this.
Now, I was initially debating where to put this memory in the script. I believed that Bedraggled Wings should have been the last one we discussed for Breath of the Wild, purely for how much I took out of it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it made more thematic sense to put Secret Rito Spring here instead. Let me explain. This memory reinforces my theory that Revali's arrogance is a facade, and in reality, he's far more caring and compassionate than people realize. Note the reason that Revali brought Zelda to the hot spring. He didn't begrudgingly agree after she asked him to. He chose to take her there because he believed she was overworking herself. On the surface, it's a small gesture, but it's one that speaks volumes about the kind of person that Revali really is. Despite the arrogance and bravado we know him for, he showed genuine concern for the princess. He could see how much she was struggling, how the expectations placed on her by her father and the people of Hyrule were taking their toll. And in that moment, he responded with genuine concern for her well-being. His choice to take her to Goflam's secret hot spring is also significant. Revali likely visited the hot spring before, given that he knew how to get to it with it being, a secret. By taking Zelda here, he wasn't just offering her a break. He was sharing something personal with her. He knows exactly what she's going through because, as we previously established, he's more than likely going through the exact same thing. Let's move on to Tears of the Kingdom's voice memories. I'll be honest, I didn't expect there to be more than in Breath of the Wild. Going in, I knew about one voice memory, but to learn that there were 4 more that each dropped some pretty significant lore about Revali, that caught me off guard in the best way possible. First, we'll start with Wings Soaring the Skies. This is another easy one to find, as it's located just before the Broken Bridge. Here it is now.
100 years ago, the divine beast Varmeadow soared through the sky, and the Rito Champion, Revali, was ever quick to celebrate his skill as its pilot. Many may have been put off by his bravado, but I found it encouraging. There were often subtle signs that he was someone who worked hard, unseen, to be certain he could back up his bluster.
Honestly, I don't have much to say about this one. This is another memory that presents us with Zelda's thoughts about Revali, much like Divine Beast of Wind and Bedraggled Wings, though it reveals a bit more about how she truly saw him. Personally, I view this memory as an extension of Bedraggled Wings, so I'll keep my thoughts brief as to not repeat myself. The use of the word encouraging is important here. It tells us that Zelda didn't view Revali's arrogance the same way that everyone else did. She could see that it was earned. She saw how much effort Revali put into his training, the discipline, the drive, the constant effort to refine a skill that didn't come naturally. And most importantly, she saw the results. Revali bragged about his skill because he earned the right to. And Zelda appreciated this. Within Revali's pride and arrogance, I believe that Zelda saw a reflection of her own struggle, her desire to fulfill every expectation placed upon her. She wanted to desperately reach the levels of confidence that Revali had. Revali had reached a place where his years of training had finally paid off, and that's what Zelda wanted too. To be able to speak with confidence, to feel like she had control, and to earn her power the same way Revali had earned his. The next 3 memories are largely focused on the same topic, Revali's legacy and the lasting impact that it had on the Rito. We'll start with A Warrior to Aspire to. This memory is found in the flight range, around the same place that Bedraggled Wings was found in Breath of the Wild. Here it is now.
Many of the Rito aspire to be like Revali, and most of the children follow his example in practice with the bow. The flight range is where they do the majority of their training, though he always claimed the practice range was only meant for him. He did strive to make a better world for future generations, and that dream lives on here.
This memory, along with the next 2 we'll be discussing, shifts focus away from Revali's personality in favor of highlighting the lasting impact that he had on the Rito. It can't be overstated how important Revali's feats were. Not only did he inspire multiple generations of Rito to learn how to master the bow, but he changed the very way they viewed the skies. In Breath of the Wild, Teba makes it clear that the Rito take off horizontally and rely on the wind to help them ascend, and that they are unable to ascend on their own. But Revali changed that. He developed a technique that allowed him to achieve the impossible through sheer willpower and determination. This changed how the Rito viewed their aerial techniques. What was thought to be impossible for hundreds, if not thousands of years, had been achieved. Limitations were shattered and replaced by new possibilities. Revali was able to give the Rito something tangible to chase. He wasn't a myth or a legend, but a real warrior who walked and soared among them. This quite nicely helps us shift focus into our next memory, Revali's Landing. As the name suggests, you'll find this memory in the same location where Link remembered one of his earliest interactions with Revali. Here's what Zelda has to say.
This plaza has been named after Revali. It's said that he boarded the divine beast from here the day the calamity began, and for that reason, and in his honor, it was given its name. The fact that the design on the ground has been carefully maintained and unchanged for 100 years shows the immense respect the village holds for their legendary warrior.
While it was Breath of the Wild that revealed the name of this structure, Tears of the Kingdom shows us how much the Rito cared for their champion. Despite there being no Rito from the time of the calamity alive in the present day, the current generation continues to honor Revali's name. These Rito only know Revali through the stories that have been passed down over the years, and yet, they've ensured the place he was last seen remains perfectly preserved. For the Rito, Revali's legacy became what I can only describe as a cultural cornerstone, if that makes sense. His story, from his greatness as a warrior to his tragic passing, left such an impact on his people that all of the males are urged from birth to become warriors like Revali. And it becomes all the more thematic when you remember that the place where one village hero's story ended is the same place where a new hero's story begins. This memory, while short and simple, shows the lasting power Revali's legacy has, but it's the next memory, his name, that hammers it home for me. This memory is found at the very bottom of Rito Village, next to the goddess statue, and it adds a more personal layer to everything we've discussed so far. Take a listen.
Rito Village, hometown of Revali, the Rito Champion. It seems he is spoken of as a legend here, and his bow is an honor bestowed on the best Rito warrior. You did hate other people talking about you, Revali, but I'm afraid your story will live on here for quite some time still.
Revali's very name has become something of a legend, something to be expected of people whose culture revolves around songs and storytelling. The Great Eagle Bow is no longer a relic to be preserved and kept safe, it's become a rite of passage, a symbol of greatness bestowed upon a warrior who has lived up to Revali's legacy. It defines what it means to be exceptional among the Rito. But that's not the part you're focusing on, is it? If you're like me, you're focusing on the last bit of the memory. Revali hated when people talked about him. It's a sharp contrast from the Revali we were introduced to over 8 years ago, the one who everybody complained about being an arrogant jerk who wanted nothing more than to be the center of attention. But now, we're being told a different story. Revali didn't like being put on a pedestal. For all his showboating and flair, he didn't enjoy how people spoke of him. But why? If we've learned anything from these past memories, it's that the Rito of the past and present all looked up to him as if he were some living legend. And that's the problem. I don't think Revali ever wanted to be remembered in this fashion. If there's one thing I know about legends, it's that they often start grounded in reality. But as time goes on, the story gets twisted. More and more fantastical elements are added with each retelling, eventually to the point where no one can tell where fact ends and fiction begins. If I had to guess, this is why Revali didn't like people talking about him. He doesn't want the story to get twisted. He doesn't want to be remembered as some mythical figure who possessed powers that the ordinary Rito could only ever dream of obtaining. He wants to be remembered as the young Rito who trained his ass off to prove to his people that the only thing in the way of their total mastery of the skies was their limitations. Or I'm just completely overthinking this. Nah, I like my interpretation better. And last, but certainly not least, we have Honoring Revali. This memory is found on the third island, right before crossing the bridge to the main part of Rito Village. And there's a reason I saved it for last. This memory is undoubtedly the most important out of all the Revali-related voice memories, because it paints every interaction between Link and Revali in a new light. If I felt like it, I could stop the video right here and give this memory its own separate video. I genuinely think it's that important. So, I'm just gonna stop talking and let you listen.
Revali, you were always quickest to rush to my side when I struggled. I'm sorry I wasn't able to help you when you were in need. You being you, I imagine you shrugged off waiting 100 years like it was the smallest inconvenience. You were so tough on Link to make sure he could protect me, weren't you?
So there's a lot to unpack here. And I feel like the short, concise analyses that I've been giving the other memories don't really work here. So for this one, I'm going to unpack it line by line and voice every thought that came to mind. The memory begins, Revali, you were always quickest to rush to my side when I struggled. Much like how his name challenged players' views of Revali by stating that he wasn't as much of an attention-seeking jerk as the game had framed him to be, this first line seems to further hammer that point home. The character who many people choose to remember as this arrogant airhead who got clapped by the easiest boss in the game is the same character who was the quickest to rush to Zelda's side. Not Mipha, not Daruk, not even Urbosa, Revali. This singular line alone speaks volumes about the kind of character Revali truly is. If he were truly as much of an arrogant jerk as the memories made him out to be, then why does Zelda remember him as the quickest one to be by her side? The second line, I'm sorry I wasn't able to help you when you were in need. This line allows Zelda to be vulnerable and truly reflect on everything. At face value, this line can be interpreted as Zelda apologizing for not being able to help when the calamity struck. Because she hadn't unlocked her sealing powers, she was forced to remain on the sidelines and watch as her friends gave their lives to defend the kingdom, only to fall one by one. She truly felt like a failure. It wasn't until a century later, after Calamity Ganon was finally defeated, that she was truly able to stop and offer her apologies to her friends, even if it was far too late to do anything about it. A second interpretation, however, is that Zelda is wishing she could have helped Revali with the struggles the way he did with hers. I feel like this one is a bit more speculative than the others, but to an extent, it makes some sense. When looking back at the previous memories, we can see some of the ways Revali helped Zelda, whether intentionally or not. She says that his bragging was encouraging. When he could see that she was overworking herself, he took her to the hot spring to relax. He was always the quickest to be at her side when she struggled. However, we don't see Zelda doing much of the same for Revali, and if I had to wager a guess, it was because she was so absorbed in her own struggles. She could at the very least see that Revali was someone who struggled in the same way she did, but I don't think she ever saw how much he struggled. Until it was far too late. The third line. You being you, I imagine you shrugged off waiting 100 years like it was the smallest inconvenience. This one's bittersweet. On one hand, it has a somewhat playful undertone, with Zelda even laughing a bit before saying it. She paints this picture of an impatient Revali, wings crossed and tapping his talons as he waits for Link to finally show up, only to act completely unfazed when Link does show. But on a deeper level, this line to me has a slight sadness to it. I think this line showcases how little Revali ever let people get close. In this interpretation, Zelda is imagining the Revali she knew, the one who would shrug off any inconvenience with a scoff like it was no big deal. Sure, he had let his guard down a bit around her, but I don't have any reason to believe that he ever fully opened up to her, let alone anyone. The biggest takeaway for me, however, is the fact that this is just how Zelda thought Revali felt during those 100 years. She didn't know how he truly felt. Hell, we don't even know how he felt. All we can do is speculate. And the final line. You were so tough on Link to make sure he could protect me, weren't you? And here's the big one. The one that recontextualizes Revali's attitude towards Link. From what this line implies, every time we saw Revali make a snide remark towards Link or issue him a challenge, it was to test him, to push him, to make sure he was strong enough. Remember, from Revali's point of view, Link is just another run-of-the-mill Hylian who happened to pull the Master Sword. The only reason he's so important is because of that sword. Revali had no idea of the struggles Link had to face, or hell, even how hard he had to train. So to learn that this nobody is not only going to serve a far more important role in defeating the Calamity than he was, but also to be appointed the princess's sole protector, he has every right to be jealous, as well as concerned. We know that Revali had wanted to spark a rivalry with Link so the two of them could push each other to be better. Now, we have another reason for that attempted rivalry. He needed to make sure Link was as strong as he had heard. Not just because he wanted a worthy opponent, but because Link needed to be strong. Not for his sake, for Zelda's. Everyone knew the stakes. Even with an army of guardians and 4 giant weapons of mass destruction, the only thing that could truly defeat Calamity Ganon would be the Master Sword and the sacred power held by Zelda. If Link wasn't as strong enough as everyone said he was, and he failed to prevent anything from happening to Zelda, that's it. It's over. This entire time, Revali wasn't just sizing Link up. He wanted to make sure that when the time came, Zelda would have a worthy protector. So, what have these voice memories shown us? They've confirmed that, like I initially theorized, Revali was the champion who worked harder than the rest. He carried the expectations of his people into the skies with him and made it look effortless to everyone, never once showing the fears, doubts, and insecurities that plagued him. They showed us that despite his bravado being off-putting by some, Zelda found it reassuring. She remembers him not as a thorn in her side, but as the first to offer support when she struggled. Through her eyes, we saw a different Revali. Not just the warrior, not just the rival, but someone who was loyal and devoted to his people, his work, and his kingdom. These memories don't rewrite who Revali was. They complete the picture. They help to reinforce the narrative that I, and now many others, have been pushing for years, that the ego was a shield, the arrogance a mask, and beneath it all, a champion who cared far more than he ever let on. Maybe, just maybe, instead of trying to outshine everyone, he was just trying to protect the people he cared about in the only way he knew how. And if that's not worthy of honor, then I don't know what is.